What's up, familia? I am the uncanny Dayspring.
And I'm your golden retriever from across the pond, Latverian Lad.
That's a great intro, bro.
I think it's pretty accurate, isn't it?
You are a golden retriever. I was thinking about it today on my jog. I was like, Sean is like so protective and loyal, and I'm just so happy to have you in my life.
Oh, well, what a nice intro. We could just end the episode here.
But you're really just a bitch.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. I was thinking like the other day. I was like, man, there hasn't been that much news with Marvel ever since the Marvels kind of was the box office flop that it was, and we went on break because of the holiday. And then today I was like kind of combing through some of like the stories out there. I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? There is a decent amount of stories out there that I wanted to kind of talk about, and I thought we could get together and kiki.
Absolutely. Well, I guess, after the Marvels and the box office, I guess not reaching what they wanted, you could imagine that they want to lay low, right? And kind of, I guess, get their house in order.
I love how you said that, because I believe there is an art to publicity that a lot of people aren't really aware of. And I think when you work in larger media corporations, you see a lot of how publicity works. And I agree with you. I think Marvel was probably like, we're going to be a little quiet right now.
Yeah.
And one of these headlines is about I don't want to say keeping their house in order, but tackling the future of the MCU, because we have Tatiana Maslany, who doubts we will get a second season of She-Hulk. And we'll get into it, but I just want to say one of the things that has irked me in today's world, especially since we are on the receiving end of having to cover a lot of this news that gets put out there, is that people take a morsel of something and run with it, or sometimes just make up news, or just say, oh, we could be getting a season 2 of She-Hulk, because us getting a season 2 of She-Hulk was like a big news item over the summer, and everyone was talking about, oh, we're going to get a She-Hulk season 2, rumor in development, and it's not.
Is this confirming that it 100% won't have a season 2, or is just her speculating based on, I guess, fan reaction to season 1?
Well, why don't we talk about it? Let's dive in.
Read it.
Let's read it. Let's see what she said, and we can talk about it and where we could possibly see her next. And as you know, we started becoming friends when She-Hulk was airing, and I had massive feels about She-Hulk, which everyone knows. So I'm excited to talk about this with you.
I think we have quite opposite opinions on She-Hulk, so it'll be a good one for us to battle it out on today's episode.
Tatiana Maslany doubts She-Hulk will get a second season, by Michael Walsh. This is coming off of Yahoo Entertainment via The Nerdist. And the article goes, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law's first season didn't end on a cliffhanger. While the season finale made another installment possible, it also wrapped up its story in a satisfying way. Okay.
Can we just pause there?
You know me so well. I was like, okay. You're like, can we just pause?
Can I just be mean for a second? So it did end on a cliffhanger, because it ended with, spoiler alert. It ended with Scar, Hulk's son, just popping up being like, hey, I'm here. And then it ends. So like, I would consider that a bit of a cliffhanger.
I agree. I forgot about Scar, to be honest with you. I forgot that. I've never forgotten about Scar, because I love World War Hulk and I love the Greg Pak story, but I forgot that he was at the end of She-Hulk season 1. There's too much in the Marvel universe right now, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Can't keep up with it. Sounds like it's a good thing it did too. Star Tatiana Maslany doesn't expect her series to get a second season at Disney Plus. It has nothing to do with viewership or fan reaction, though. She says the critically acclaimed show probably won't be back for the simplest, oldest, and most basic reason in television history: money.
So that, talking about how do you manage PR, that is some good spin, because one thing is linked to the other. She goes, oh, it's about money. Yeah, cost a lot to make her show, to do the CGI for her. But if it had a better fan reception and a fan reaction, and it generated more capital for Marvel, there would have been a second one. So I don't think they're not intrinsically linked.
Yeah, and I want to say, it says critically acclaimed show. I don't remember it being critically acclaimed. I remember there was a lot of fan support for it, of course. But I mean, I think She-Hulk was pretty contentious. Viewership, though, I will say it's like mid-ranking for the Disney Plus shows. It's definitely not in the lower end like Miss Marvel or What If. It's actually sort of in the middle. So, I don't think it did bad in terms of viewership, but she does say money. So it's not coming back because of money, or she speculates. She recently made a live stream appearance, which we first learned about on Deadline, on the Twitch series Codenames Live, the new class. I mean, I've never heard of this Twitch
Me
channel.
neither.
No, I mean, I'm going to go check them out now. During the show, she answered a question about a possible season 2 renewal for She-Hulk. I don't think so, she said. I think we blew our budget and Disney was like, no thanks. Okay, so kind of like with what you were saying about, is this her speculating or what's actually concrete fact? This sounds like a concrete no to me. And she's just sort of in conversation saying that because, as we know, stars have gotten in trouble for putting Disney on blast. And if there was a more so of a possibility it was coming back for season 2, I don't think she would be like, Disney was like, no thanks.
Yeah, but even if season 2 is not coming, I guess you wouldn't want to burn your bridge because I think a good strategy that Marvel has, or I speculate they have, is you can have characters like this get one season, one series. We get to know the character, we get to know the actor, actress that's portraying them, fall in love with the character. And then they don't always need an ongoing series because you've now introduced them into the wider cinematic universe. So, She-Hulk doesn't need a season 2. She might appear in something else. So you don't, for me, I wouldn't, if I was in Marvel and they cast me as a superhero, I definitely wouldn't burn my bridges if my show got canceled.
So I agree with you because we have a little movie coming out, is it next year or the following year, which is Captain America 4 New World Order. And it's supposed to be a Hulk heavy movie. And I would love to see Tatiana in that. And I wonder, is she not going to be in it? Because again, if she was going to be in that movie, and she's not confirmed to be in that movie, but we know that they recast it, some of the Hulks, General Ross. I was trying to remember his name, General Ross, and we know Liv Tyler's returning as Betty Ross. So I would love to see Tatiana there, presumably with Mark Ruffalo. I'd like to see a Hulk heavy movie. I'd like to see Captain America take on the Hulks. That to me is like chef's kiss perfect. But when she's here, I don't think so. I think we blew our budget and Disney was like, no thanks. I would imagine if I was in this movie and I had a PR Disney publicist breathing down my neck, I'd be like, wait and see. You never know where Jennifer is going to appear next. Is sort of what I would have said.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I don't think what she said is very egregious. It's just a fact. The show cost a lot of money, and when you look at the ROI probably generated, they're like, you know what, we can get a bigger bang for our buck somewhere else. And if people like the character and she makes sense, we can slot her in a movie that has a big budget. And if we're animating a ton of Hulks, might as well throw one more into the mix.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. All right, let's finish out this article. Apparently, it costs a lot of money to bring a giant green rage monster superhero to life for 9 episodes when they're the star of the show. This is true. Who would have thought? Maybe her boss at the law firm shouldn't have insisted she appear as She-Hulk at the office? Question mark. While the detractors of the show will almost certainly claim the budget has nothing to do with a potential renewal or cancellation, this certainly sounds like a classic case of Occam's razor. Marvel Studios isn't a money printing enterprise anymore. Disney is definitely looking at the costs of all its projects, including the MCU. We're still positive Ms. Lonnie will be back in the MCU in other ways, whether it's in the MCU films or Disney Plus shows. Jen Walters is a major Marvel Comics figure. And her big green story, I'm sorry, her big green story, her big screen story is just getting started.
I think, like they say, it's Occam's razor. The simplest answer is the answer. It just costs. If you look at how much it must cost to make this versus Daredevil, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would guess that the new Daredevil show is gonna be more popular.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I mean, listen, it was like what did it mention it here? I think I saw somewhere that it was $225 million to make this series.
A lot.
$225 million. That is a lot of money. And then a platform like Disney Plus, well, when you're dropping that much money, your return on investment is getting new subs, or that this is going to be an evergreen, unintended, content that people are just going to revisit and become kind of like a cult classic. Whether someone likes She-Hulk or not, I think it's not going to become a cult classic. I think it's, highly divisive amongst stans. I love She-Hulk. I love Jen Walters. I think Tatiana is perfect casting. I know there's a lot about the messaging of the show that, upset a lot of people. I personally am always down with that message of empowerment. However, I just think the quality of writing, especially when it pertained to character development, the legal aspects of the show, I thought it was garbage. I thought it was so half-baked. I thought it was lazy writing.
I think you get so caught up though on things like in the real world, that's not how a law firm would work. And then you're like, in a real world, Dayspring, I can't throw lasers out of my eyes. So you know what I mean? I think
Right,
those things
but
we can't.
no, but like if someone is coming into you and being like, "Oh, at a magic show, I opened up a portal to hell," and you're going to take it to a courtroom, you're going to want to use some real world elements there, such as anyone who would open up a portal to hell in their magic show would make the audience members sign waivers. You have to sign a fucking waiver to go to Sleep No More in New York, and that is just an immersive experience with actors pretending to be like monsters.
Fair, but can you argue that maybe he didn't actually think he was opening a portal to hell and he thought it was all a
No,
joke?
because what's her name? Oh my God, what's her name? Wait, what's her name? The drunken girl,
Oh, it's
Madison. Madison.
Madison.
Wait, Madison, because she kept doing the show even after Madison went through the portal in hell, and
Okay, so I guess
and they were drawing real world parallels with like news sites and stuff like that. So it's like if you told me this was just a fantastical world, then I would be like, fine, like. But like, there's certain elements that have to be incorporated in order to make scenes work. And by the way, make it at least smart is all. That's the only thing I'm trying to say with the legal stuff.
fair. But I think that's a very harsh criticism of like if that's what you're picking on, do you know what I mean? I think at that point it's not so bad, right? If that's the nitpickiness that we're getting at.
No,
Um
that is just one example of many I have.
I guess. I quite liked it. I think we'll agree to disagree.
No, we're not going to agree to disagree.
You're
I'm
just gonna
standing
beat me
my
into
ground.
submission until I'm like, yes, they should have had signed legal waivers.
Among other things. No, I mean that's just my thing is lazy writing overall for the series. But again, I think Tatiana was perfectly cast. And in fairness, I've always held the John Byrne She-Hulk run, which is sort of like the iconic one among most like Marvel comics readers. You go back and read it, I think it's also not very well done. I think the Charles Soule She-Hulk that we get, within the last few years, I mean, at this point, maybe like 6 years, is actually a very smart, provocative, story of Jen being an attorney in the superhero world. I think that's fun. I think that's really riveting. But historically, in fairness to the show, even the John Byrne run that everyone loves, it's not particularly awesome, but it is fun. It is fun.
Yeah, and I think that's where you have to look at the tone of it versus other projects, right? Like if you said Winter Soldier, I think it was worse if they made mistakes like that in a movie or show that had that kind of more serious tone. Whereas for me, She-Hulk was very camp. It was very tongue-in-cheek. She broke the fourth wall. So once you establish that, for me, like having kind of those mistakes they're less bad because the whole thing's a little bit silly anyways, and that's what you're watching it for. So I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so different to pretty much every other Marvel thing. So when I didn't did it come out all in one shot or did it come out like weekly?
It came out weekly. It came out weekly.
Okay, so I watched it I think when it was fully out and I kind of just binged it. And I really enjoyed it. So I'm not gagging for season 2, but I really thought it was fun to watch.
There were some moments that, like, when I initially watched it, I kind of like rolled my eyes on. I think I've told you this, like the bridesmaid scene where she kind of comes in and all the bridesmaids throw everything on her. And I'm like, why would they do that? That doesn't like that would never happen in real life. And I went to my friend's wedding later that year, and literally I walked in and the bridesmaids all threw stuff on me. And I was like, well, fuck you. And then I was like, oh, Jen, I'm channeling you here. So
And then you hulked out and smashed up her wedding.
oh my gosh. You know, when they were like, does anyone object? I was like, I do. I have a few things to say. No, of course not. I'm kidding. All right. Well, here are some comments. Let's dive into some of these comments really quickly because I think some of these comments are fair. I know you're on one end, I'm on the other, but I'm glancing at these comments and I think to myself, okay, these are not terrible comments. Jay wrote, I took the show for what it was and quite enjoyed the wackiness of it. And
There you go.
it is
Jay
a
is
very
a wise man.
listen, if I could have done edibles and just watched the show, I would have been a happier person. Ronan says she's awesome, and I agree. I think Tatiana is perfect, perfect, perfect casting. She's awesome, but like Andrew Garfield in a horrible Spider-Man film, it's not the actor's fault. The show was a disaster. My kids and I watched every Marvel show, and they were into this until it started falling apart, and then the ending was completely off the rails. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Like so for me, here's the issue. It's a bit of a Marmite ending because
Yeah.
I I quite laughed at the ending, but
Yeah.
then equally you go, but this can't then fit in the Marvel continuity of the wider MCU, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't mesh together, so you kind of almost have to go like if she appears in some another project like let's say Captain America 4,
I hope
then you just
so.
have to go like, none of that stuff happened. So
Yeah.
we go movie facts.
Wait, 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 wait. Sorry. Movie facts. Hang on.
Yeah,
Movie facts said, I tried with this show. I really did, but I just couldn't make it to the end of episode one. It was just too painful to watch. I don't agree with that. I actually think episode one was pretty okay. I had no qualms with episode one in retrospect.
no, I yeah. You know,
Yeah,
but
I
who
think
knows?
that I think the comments are getting a little meaner once I hit
Yeah,
show more. They're getting a little bit meaner, but I feel like those first two comments are pretty good. Like I think they represent sort of a middle of the ground thing, which is like I just enjoyed the show. It was wacky, and I agree with what you said though. Like in the context of larger MCU, of course, it's going to start being flimsy, but I think enjoying the show for what it was, I think that is a very fair comment. Very fair.
do you know what it kind of felt like? It felt like watching like I don't know, like an Ally McBeal or a Sex in
No,
the City.
no,
Oh, here we
no,
go.
no, because Sex in the City and Ally McBeal are actually very well written. And that was the entire point
Okay,
of it, which was if you would have done stuck the landing with that quality of writing, then I would be like, give us Sex in the City, but the MCU, like just like how Marvel Divas did, the comic book Marvel Divas. I would have loved it, and that's what I was expecting here. It just like the writing was just very two-dimensional. It was just lazy writing.
but I
Sorry.
think if you put it in a wheelhouse, I think like that is kind of the vibe it was
Right.
giving, like an MCU crossover to that genre. Now, was it as good as those shows? No, I'm not saying they were, but I'm saying like it kind of evoked the same emotion. And for some, in the MCU, that was really different, and I really enjoyed it.
What did you think of the CG?
Um, I mean, I didn't think it was terrible. I think Scar at the end looked really ropey, like his hairline was really screwed up.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you something. Like I'm that person that like doesn't notice like the bad animation. I don't notice when like bad audio. I have a really easy palette to please for these types of things.
Excluding all others.
I guess it's my golden retrieverness that I'm just like, yeah, it's great, it's fine.
I
Like
didn't
works for
I didn't
me.
think it was bad. I didn't think it was $225 million good, but I didn't think it was bad. She looked great. I like the character design quite a bit. Again, I think Tatiana pulled it off. I know there are moments that people laugh at the CG, especially when she was working and stuff like that. Stuff like that did not bother me. I was okay with the humor. I was okay with the CG. I thought it looked good. And again, I love She-Hulk quite a bit as a character. I was expecting more, but let's see what her future is. I will say though, like, who was it there at Marvel Studios? I think this is a larger problem with Hollywood as an industry where it's like, why are you going to approve a show that's $225 million for a platform that's only a couple years old? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's sort of where I don't understand. Like Disney Plus is a very successful, very, very well watched platform, but it's still just starting off and 225 million. Like, of course it wasn't going to make sense financially. You know what I
So
mean?
I've got two comments on that. So
Yes. Yeah.
one, go back to her comment, which was we went over budget. So it could be
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like you have a set thing, like a set budget, you get into it, things cost more. You've got that sunk cost fallacy where you go, well, we've already shoved 100 million and we might as well finish it for another 150. So it could be a bit of that. Other thing, going then to your point, like if they did have a view of like the budget, and let's take the assumption that they knew it was going to cost 250, it is a bit mind-boggling because you go, a lot of these properties, I guess to make the money back, you've got to sell the peripheral items that go along with that IP, right? Like the toys,
Oh,
the
I
video
agree.
games, the comics, the this, the that, the t-shirts, the. Now I'm going to argue that I don't think she's a very marketable character compared to some of the other ones.
Really?
Well, was there tons of
No,
okay?
there wasn't. But I think She-Hulk as an IP is marketable, but I don't think the Disney Plus show has been
Yes,
marketable.
like the way like in the genre they made her, and we'll
Yeah.
call it a much more adult.
Yes, agreed.
I know you're gonna roast me for it, but like we'll call it like Sex in the City vibe Marvel thing. She's in like a law outfit. It doesn't
Yeah.
scream action figure to have a She-Hulk in a beige power suit. Do you know what I mean? So and nobody's gonna want that on a t-shirt. You know, so I go, you look at that kind of revenue stream that you need to generate from all those other things. I don't think that this is the right show and portrayal of her to do that. And then you go like, how are you going to break even on that massive investment?
I agree because the beauty of these $225 million budgets is the art of appealing to a wider audience, not only just with your male female demographics, which was the source of a lot of contention here, but I will also say with your age. You want to have younger audiences who are 4 or 5 as they look at Black Panther, as they look at Captain America, as they look at Black Widow. You want them to look at that with the same eyes with She-Hulk. And it's not a very accessible show for kids.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
right. Like let's stick with your very offensive comparison to Sex and the City. You're not going to show Sex and the City to a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. They're not going to get it, no matter how fabulous Carrie's outfits are. No, it's just not going to happen. So I agree with you. I do think we got a Marvel Legends She-Hulk. I'm forgetting if we did or didn't, but
you just proved my point.
But here's yes, because I can't remember. I'm pretty sure we did, but B, it's for adults. For adults, there is no She-Hulk based off of the show. So I agree with you. I think, why would you greenlight, let's say they went over budget, let's say $190 million show, which I'm sure was much less if they went over. But let's just say you greenlight this, you're going to want to make sure that this is appealing to a lot of people. No, just my 2 cents on that as well. Like, I agree with you on it.
It's just like, what's funny is like, there must be an army of analysts and business advisors and strategists that sit at Marvel to make these huge decisions. And I don't know, you just go like gut feel, doesn't it? Wouldn't you just know, right? Like, and I say that at work all the time. I'm like, before you get into like the micro detail of everything, like just take some common sense right at the top before you
agree.
put anything through the funnel. Like, does it resonate with you, or are you like, it just smells funny,
Well, but I agree with you because we're not playing Monday morning quarterback here, right? We are here like, oh, Disney is dropping $225 million on the show. They're going to make it good. They're going to make it accessible to everyone. I mean, of course, we live in a world where there's a lot of unfair hate and a lot of angry, comments that come in. That's fine. But I think when you look at something, you're like, okay, well, they tried their best to appeal to everything. I agree. Why would you greenlight a show like this? And then when it gets its reaction like that, you're just like, wow, I mean, yes, no duh. You should have done something a little bit more welcoming for everyone. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
we
no,
could.
I would say like for me, it depends. Like if the budget was reasonable and maybe they wrote the script where they didn't have to animate her as much,
Mhm.
and you go, you know what? For like if it was, I don't know, half the cost or whatever, I don't know what they would have needed to make their money back, but or like the margins on streaming look like, but
Same.
um,
I don't know.
you know, I would greenlight it if it was in a reasonable budget. But when you go like, oh, it's going to be super expensive compared to a lot of the other shows you make, you
Yeah.
go like, it's not going to be as popular as a Daredevil, I bet. And I bet you Daredevil costs a quarter of the amount to make it because it's very,
Yeah.
based in, you don't really need a lot of fantastical powers. It's very street. It's very, you could just do with costumes. And that's the smell test, right? Like Daredevil's going to do better. It's probably going to be a lot cheaper. Focus on that.
All right. Well, speaking of Daredevil, we got some news about Daredevil this week as well, and concerning the Netflix shows, which I'm so happy for. Daredevil Born Again blowing up is what made all the Netflix shows MCU canon. And this is an article on Forbes where we're talking about how that now it looks like the Netflix shows that were not considered in canon before are now going to be canon in the MCU. And we have Karen and Foggy rumored to be returning.
I mean, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
I never got why they wouldn't. Like, I can get maybe from a legal perspective if there was issues kind of in the back end that they didn't want to give other people money if they had it was rights. I can kind of get that. But like from a purely story point of view, there was no reason why it shouldn't be.
Yeah, so the actor who plays the Kingpin says that all the creatives got together and said, look, this is how we've got to do it now. It brings in a lot of cool stories and a lot of collateral stories that happen in those original 3 seasons. I'm excited for this, I have to tell you, because I thought the Netflix Heroes were some of my favorite storytelling
Sorry, the Netflix what?
heroes.
Oh, I heard you say Zeros, and I was like,
The Netflix Zeros. The Netflix Heroes for me are some of the best like MCU storytelling. And I like Defenders. See, listen, I can acknowledge Defenders didn't land with everyone, but I can say I enjoyed it and I thought it was fun. And I love Daredevil. I love Jessica Jones. Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones.
oh
My
yeah.
God, I have to tell you, if I was a casting director and I have zero experience being a casting director, I would have passed on her. And I would have been like, no, we need someone like Eliza Dushku, who's, Faith from Buffy. And let me tell you something, Kristen Ritter, I can never picture anyone else in that role. She nailed it.
Would you have passed on her after Bitch in Apartment 23?
That was a series with her and James Vanderbeek, right? And James
Yes.
Vanderbeek plays a fictional version of himself. I'd have to I'd have to rewatch it. Where I really knew Kristen Ritter from was like the backdoor pilot in Gossip Girl, where she played a young Serena's aunt. I'm forgetting the character's name. I think her name was Carol. But that's where I remember Kristen Ritter quite a bit.
Oh my God, go like do yourself a
Yeah.
favor and go rewatch Bitch in Apartment 23. It's one of the funniest sitcoms that I can remember. And I think it only lasted like 1 season, maybe 2.
Yeah.
It was just so funny.
I mean, she's such an incredibly talented actress. We went to see oh my God, I'm forgetting where we saw her in the city a couple years ago when season 2 of Jessica Jones, they had like kind of like a private panel. And we saw her and the entire cast was there. And Kristen Ritter came on stage and she was here like, because I'm Kristen, I'm loud and I'm funny and I talk from here. And then when I'm Jessica, I sink down and it comes from my stomach. And the way she could go on and off as Jessica and herself, I was like, give this woman an Emmy. Give her an Emmy. She is so incredibly talented.
But you wonder too, like how many actors and actresses that get their start, like take Ryan Reynolds, right? Do you remember him? I mean, kids, if you're too young, you're not going to remember this.
Van
But
Wilder.
no. Let's go even earlier. Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place.
Oh my God, yes.
And you look at that show, which was like objectively a very run of the mill sitcom way back, and you look at any of those 3 main characters, and you're like, these people won't have careers. And now Ryan Reynolds is one of the most famous men in Hollywood. So like, so my point, sorry, that was a very like long-winded, squiggly way of getting to, sometimes you get a break, your acting debut, and something that's kind of a bit silly. You might get typecast, but actually you could be a really fantastic actor or actress. And people just never know because you're just like, oh, they did that really stupid role, and that's the kind of, thespian they are.
I agree. And one of the things about the MCU that I think we've all kind of enjoyed is that we're hiring, I'm like they are hiring people who are quality actors who can bring something to the table. I mean, ScarJo, for example, very celebrated actress going into Black Widow, into Iron Man 2. So I love that we have people like Charlie Cox and Kristen Ritter. It makes me really happy. One of the things that I am a little irked of, Sean, I have to tell you, is that
what grinds your gears, Dave?
I'm gonna tell you what I'm kind of upset about. For years, I watched these shows as they came out. I watched every single season that we got from a Netflix hero, from the last season of Punisher to the first season of Daredevil. So I did the whole spectrum. We were dying to just get a morsel of Easter eggs to the larger Marvel universe. And we got mentions of, what did they call it? The attack, the New York attack, the battle for New York, or something like that. The incident, forgetting what they called it in Daredevil. But we never really saw them fit into a larger piece of the MCU story, right? We would have loved to have seen them in Endgame when those portals open and everyone's kind of coming out. And that was because there was a lot of behind the scenes strife between Kevin Feige and Jeff Loeb. And when Disney Plus started off, we were the rights reverted back to Disney for Daredevil and Elektra and everyone. We were kind of like told like, oh, those shows didn't count. We're starting something new, and now they count again. And I'm like, great. I'm glad you finally, after like 10 years, decided these shows are in canon, and now we can start fitting them into a larger universe. But I would have loved for the Defenders, for Luke Cage, to be part of a larger MCU narrative already, especially since we had Infinity War and Endgame. I would have loved to have seen some of these heroes dusted, snapped away by Thanos. Do you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, absolutely. In an ideal world, that would have been the best way to do it. But I'll take that glass half full side and say it is better late than never, right? So, I mean, you can make the argument.
I love you so much. Of those. Yes, I love you so much. You're such a golden retriever. I'm always in a better. I feel like now I'm like this angry old man talking, and you're just like, no, it's fine. The glass is half full. They're in canon now. You're such a good person.
We have to be yin and yang. We need the balance of energies. But like, and going back to that, like I think something that I kind of like about it being separate is that you don't need every Marvel show and every Marvel movie connecting to something.
Sure.
And a lot of the Netflix ones are very street level superheroes, right? So, they're solving, mafia things with the Kingpin, or like, organized crime, things that are much more relatable to the real world. Let's be honest, if Jessica Jones came up against Thanos, he's gonna smash her. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not even gonna take a second. So it's fine for me that they kept them separate. That being said, I'm super excited that now they'll be integrated, and you can have the opportunity of having them in crossovers where it makes sense. And I think that's, like, going back to my earlier point, it's really exciting to have like just little things, whether they be miniseries or whatever, where they introduce different characters, because then that they're in the MCU and they might show up one day in another movie or show or whatever.
Can I ask you, who is your favorite Netflix hero out of all the characters we got in sort of that corner of the MCU?
Oh, Daredevil.
Daredevil, Charlie Cox.
Yeah.
Have we told you the story of, what was it, like, I guess 2 New York Comic Cons ago? The one where we didn't meet. We threw a party with some of the other X-Men podcasters at the Dream Hotel, and we were at the bar, and the Save Daredevil people kind of shoot us away from the bar, and they were like, we reserved the space. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We're actually over there. I'm just gonna get a drink. And they just stared and looked at me until like we got away. And I was like, do not come between a podcaster and his vodka, please. Let me just get my vodka. We won't come by here anymore. But
It's like the X-Men stands, West Side Story against the Daredevil stands. Is that what it was?
I mean, Charlie Cox. I loved him. Speaking of She-Hulk, I loved him in She-Hulk. I loved that scene where he was doing the walk of shame. I thought that was a very fun scene. I think the chemistry that Charlie and Tatiana had was really great. So I'm happy to see that this is part of a larger narrative. Echo, did you see Echo yet?
I haven't. I
Okay, Echo
haven't.
Echo fits right into, regardless of how people feel about Echo, the tone and like the cinematography sort of fits into this Netflix hero vibe, and I'm
Yeah, it
and I'm
looks. I
happy
mean,
for it.
the trailer looks fantastic. I like. I want to be very clear. I haven't watched it not because of disinterest in it. I haven't watched it just because I've just been busy and haven't been able to sit down and dedicate the time to do it. And I'll probably end up binging it like I did She-Hulk.
It's not that I don't like you; it's just that I don't have time for you.
Yeah, which I guess maybe is saying something because I guess if there was like I don't know a show about Bullseye, I'd probably
Oh
watch it
yeah,
right
that's
away.
it. You would be like calling me at like 4 in the morning, being like, "Bitch, we need to record reactions to it." No, it's not. I get you. I mean, at this isn't like when the Netflix shows were coming out, they were events, and that's something that we've talked about, and Marvel has talked about that. Something that sort of made it special. The secret sauce is that when a Marvel movie came out, when one of the Netflix shows came out, it was like an event, right? When WandaVision came out, we all stopped and we
Yeah,
watched it. Now it's like, oh, okay, I can get to that because all the episodes are out now, so I'll just get to it when I can get to it. But
and
uh,
there's no like back when WandaVision came out, it felt like so many people were talking about it that if you
oh, yeah,
didn't watch it right away, there were going to be spoilers.
yeah,
And,
agreed.
I haven't seen an episode of Echo and I haven't really seen a lot of discourse in the social media, let's say, that I follow that
Yeah.
has ruined anything for me. So, yeah, but I think that's just endemic of like the fact that they've released so much stuff so quickly recently. And then some of the stuff has been, some pretty big misses that the momentum's slowed down.
Yeah.
But I'm sure with Deadpool and everything coming up, momentum will swing back around, and we'll be here in 2026, 2025, going, oh my god, like I can't wait for the Silver Surfer show to come out.
Oh my God, 2026, I'm going to be 42. I can't. I don't want to. I don't want to continue going forward in time.
So just stop. Stop
uh,
aging.
Stop aging. I would be excited to see Trish Walker return. I love Patsy Walker in the comics. I love Hellcat. I think Trish was phenomenal in the Netflix shows. I love her theme song. Do you remember? It's Patsy. I really want to be your friend. It's Patsy. I hope this day never ends, because she was like a Disney teen star who grows up to be a radio host. I loved it so much.
My hope is, unsurprisingly, that they get a Bullseye in the show with like a comic accurate or close to costume.
Let's see. Okay, next up, and our final news item is Resurrection of Magneto 4. The solicitation dropped. It's a beautiful cover. Look at that cover right there. Gorgeous,
Very
gorgeous
cool.
cover. And the solicitation copy says, "Return of the King, the Master of Magnetism, has returned to the world, dot, 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 but it's not the world he left." Audible gasp. "Nor is Magneto the same man who left it. Has death changed him for the better or for the worse? And when he sees what Orcus has done to mutant kind, will it change him again?" So I'm so frustrated that we have to have 4 issues of a book called Resurrection of Magneto when Magneto has not even been dead for a full 2 years. He died literally a year and a half ago. Here we are. He's back to life. And I don't need to rant about it anymore, other than like the Krakoan age was supposed to stop stories of death and rebirth because they had just become trite. I expected more from Al Ewing. That is fine. I think Al Ewing is a really good writer. I've been diving into Immortal Hulk, and I think it's such a well-written series. I'm curious what is editorial direction, blah blah blah, but this cover got me excited. I can get behind this cover, and I want to see what they're going to do with Magneto.
So do you have any hypothesis of what's going to hypotheses? It's hard word to
No,
say.
None
So
whatsoever. Not even a
I'm gonna
little bit. I think it's
okay.
ridiculous.
I'm gonna give you a guess, right?
Okay.
I think that and this is all just speculation, obviously, um, that the higher ups are going, you know what, like Krakoa was really out in left field. It's a little wacky. It's not landing. Let's bring things back to basics. You know, X-Men
Hmm.
97 is coming out. It's very classic 90s outfit in the mansion.
Hmm.
So they're going to resurrect Magneto. He's going to see what Orcus did. He's going to be super pissed off, and go back to like, you know what? Humans can't be trusted. I was right all along, and they're going to swing him back to being a villain.
Okay. I can't disagree with that. I
Because
really
that's kind
can't.
of bringing him
Yeah,
back to basics, right?
I agree. No, I listen. 100. That's it. Thank you for joining us today on Power of X-Men. That's it. I agree with you because Magneto, we know the X-Men are getting their reboot. They're going to go back to basics. What is the X-Men in the mansion? What is one of the most fundamental basics in this narrative and this conflict is Magneto and the Brotherhood and an opposing ideology. And I agree with you. By the way, if I was Magneto in story, and Al Ewing is a very great writer, he's a very capable writer. So if I'm thinking of Magneto as a character, I did Genosha, I did Utopia, I did Krakoa. And those projects fail time and time again, and
Yeah.
humans will always come after us. They will always try to murder us. They will, anytime we congregate, they will slaughter us. And coupled with the fact that he's a survivor of the Holocaust, yeah, Magneto's going to be pretty fucking pissed off. So
Do they ever explain? Is it because he's like the resurrection protocol from Krakoa to explain his age?
they've been murky about it, but I mean, he's been de-aged in the comic books
Well, yeah.
before. Yeah, he's been de-aged in the comic books, prior to Krakoa. I think I'm trying to remember if someone said something like your dad looks so youthful and happy in one of those issues, early issues. I think it's implied that yeah, you can resurrect your body at any stage in your
Okay.
life. I would assume he did die. We do have confirmation that he did die in Inferno and was resurrected in Inferno, Jonathan Hickman's Inferno. So we can assume yes, he's
Okay.
been de-aged
Because
a
that's
couple of
like a
times.
huge kind of time, like funny thing where you go, he was
Yeah.
there at World War II, but he's still kind of hunky and young.
I mean,
That
hunky
doesn't.
zaddy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's total zaddy, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, for something like that, I'm always fine with them just saying he jumped into some kind of time bubble or suspending animation. You don't have to give me too much
A
with
wizard
this.
did it.
A wizard. No, I was listening to our episode with Drugalas. The Shi'ar did it. That's it. Just the
Yeah.
Shi'ar. Just blame the Shi'ar, and that's it. It doesn't need something that's an elaborate explanation because I think one of the fundamental cores of Magneto is that he's a Holocaust survivor. Obviously, as time goes on, this becomes less likely because of the time gap between the comics published today and World War II. But I think this character, I'm happy to see him back. I'm glad he's back. I don't think they should have ever killed him off in the first place. I think that is lazy writing. Let's see what Al Ewing does with him. I trust Al Ewing. I don't want to pay for 4 issues of a comic that's going to be like $5.99. I'm just like, come on, like. So I'm hoping the first issue will be good.
Yeah, I think like I kind of disagree with you. I could see how you could squeeze 4 issues out of it, right? It's like coming
No,
back, what
no,
happened.
no, just 1 issue. You get 1 issue. That's it. Super size, 50 pages.
Okay, fair.
I wouldn't even read 4 issues of a Jean Grey miniseries. Louise Simonson writing Jean Grey for 4 issues. It was like you could have done this in one super
Yeah, but you
sized,
did
double
read all
sized issue.
4
Of course
because
I
I
did.
listened to every one of your little recaps about it, ranting about how bad it was.
I know there is a common denominator that I'm not happy with the current X books, but I'm trying to be happy and I'm being optimistic. I think Al Ewing, I'm telling you, Immortal Hulk, the series he did back in 2018 is so good. It is one of these things that, like I told Jeff, I just want to lay in bed and read this, and I haven't done that in a while. Like I believe Sunshine State this nonfiction essay collection by Sarah Gerard was the last time I was like, I'm gonna lay in bed and just read this cover to cover. I'm not gonna get out of bed until I'm done reading it. And Immortal Hulk makes me feel that way.
Do you know I love, sorry, going back to the solicitation now that you got it back on screen. It is like the most lazy writing, just in terms of like, is it this or is it that? He could be good, he could be bad.
It's so vague.
You know, this is definitely an intern that's like, oh fuck, that was due like at 5 p.m. today, and it's 3:30, and I want to go to the gym early, so I'm gonna get this out.
He goes, by the way, that was me in 2006. I had to write solicitation copy. I understand how they do some of this stuff where they farm it out to interns from various departments, and they all kind of contribute to the newsletters and stuff like that. Listen. We have criticized the marketing copy here. I will say this is really vague. This obviously doesn't give anything, but it's a beautiful cover. It's Stefano Caselli who's doing the cover. I think it looks beautiful. So I'm excited for it. I want Magneto back with the X-Men. One of the things with Krakoa, I hope once everything is said and done and we're reset, rebooted, I want every character that has been brought back in the Krakoan age to stay alive. Get that Wanda cloud and just make every mutant that's ever lived alive, and that's it. Start anew.
Do you know what would be so interesting actually? Is if now after this you have like going back to that original, you know, Xavier's dream versus Magneto's dream, and you just split up like X-Men, Old Brotherhood people, like whoever, and they go one side to the other, and then just play into that as a storyline of like, you know, they don't see eye to eye on things, you know, brothers and sisters turned against each other based on their, you know, the moral dilemma that they face, and then to culminate that into an event in like a year's time.
Yeah, I agree.
X-Men versus Brotherhood, a Marvel event.
I agree.
I would get back into that.
I think there's a beauty in telling simpler, lower stakes stories. Like, yeah. I don't want to say lower stakes because you can have high stakes between characters that are deeply personal. And I'm okay with that. Not everything needs to be everyone dies on the planet, blah, blah, blah. Characters are dead. I don't know. I agree with you with what you said earlier on in this episode, which is like maybe Marvel has hopefully a team of analysts who sees these things. And I trust the reason why they do things like that is because they see a sales bump. But at a certain point, you're like, it's okay to tell good, well-written stories that are not dealing with the end of the world. It's just a Brotherhood versus the X-Men. So let's see.
Hopefully it's gonna be good.
Okay, well, that's the news today. Familia, let us know your feels. Are you sad that She-Hulk isn't coming for season 2? Are you team Latverian Lad or team Dayspring? Did you like it or not? We have Daredevil and the Netflix Heroes finally in continuity. Is that something that excites you? And are you excited to see Magneto return to the land of the living? Hopefully it's Magneto, not Zorn. They're not going to say it was Zorn who died during X-Men Red.
Well, then it would be called Resurrection of Zorn Dayspring.
I can't. Do not make me go on a Zorn rant. I can't. I cannot do a Zorn rant. Zorn and Joseph, those are things I can talk about for days.
I mean, I'm gonna end the call now to save all of you.
Latverian Lad, where can folks at home hit you up?
Just on Instagram at Latverian Lad. Nice and simple.
Yes, and we're at Power of X-Men. And that's it. Slide into our DMs.